babe. Hello, gorgeous. Seeing as how I'm on a bit of a Michael Douglas 80s kick lately, having recently watched and enjoyed Romancing the Stone and Jewel of the Nile, I took a look through his IMDb page to see if there were any other classic 80s Douglas movies out there to watch. I'm not such a big fan of his kind of businessy type of stuff like Wall Street and the other white-collar dramas. But I did find one that looked like it was going to be interesting. 1989 film. 1989 was a great year for films, apparently. Indiana Jones, the final Indiana Jones movie ever, the last one ever made, came out in 1989, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Just recently watched Say Anything for the first time, and that's a fantastic movie. Looking forward to watching it again in maybe a year. And today's review, Black Rain, 1989, directed by Ridley Scott. Browsed through some of the user reviews on IMDb for Black Rain, and generally positive reviews for it. So I love Ridley Scott films. I love Michael Douglas films, so decided to give it a try. Really glad I did, because this movie was fantastic. There's a lot of cool twists and turns in this movie, and I was trying to come up with a way of discussing this film without spoiling any of it for those who haven't seen it, because it wasn't a huge hit, and it's rarely talked about when classic films come up. But there's just really no way to do it, so this is going to be a spoiler review. If you don't care about spoilers, then go ahead and watch the rest of the video. But if spoilers are devastating to you, if knowing anything that happens in a movie ruins your enjoyment of the whole film, then you have been warned, because I'm going to talk about what actually happened in the movie here. So on the surface, this seems like it's going to be a traditional cop drama. And again, I don't really like things that are overly serious. I like movies that, even if they tackle a serious subject, have some chuckles in there, have some lightheartedness, and Black Rain definitely has that with the two stars, or at least who you're led to believe will be the two stars of the film, Michael Douglas and Andy Garcia. Their chemistry together is fantastic. They're like an odd couple of cops. Andy is the prissy young guy who wears all the expensive clothes, and Michael Douglas is the older cop. Leather jacket, rides a motorcycle, he's tough, he's a New York cop. And I gotta say, I've never seen Michael Douglas look this bad. Now there's quite a few movies out there where a good-looking Hollywood leading man, or one that's in great shape, will purposely let himself go to hell for the character. One that comes to mind is Black Mass with Johnny Depp, with the bald head and just the all-around creepy look to him. You got Sylvester Stallone in Copland, where he famously lost the Rambo abs and gained all the weight. So in this movie, Douglas looks like he put on about 20 pounds. He's got this double chin, which he accentuates with turtleneck. I can't believe how ugly that turtleneck is that he wears in this movie. And he's disheveled. He hasn't shaved. His hair is, growing out a little bit, and he looks like he hasn't slept in weeks. So in homage of Michael Douglas's character, Nick Conklin in Black Rain, I am disheveled, and I'm wearing the leather coat, and I haven't slept in days to try to convey the essence of Nick. Now this is a 2-hour movie, but it feels a lot longer than that. It's jam-packed with all sorts of twists and turns, and I decided to split it up in 2 viewings. And even doing it that way, watching an hour one day and an hour the next day, it still felt like a lot. And even though I love this movie, I should mention that my wife hated it. She thought it was extremely boring. So unlike Romancing the Stone and Jewel of the Nile, not a good date movie. This is a guy's movie. Get a bunch of your buddies together and watch this kick-ass film. So one of the things I really enjoyed about this movie was the unpredictability of the story. Again, on the surface, it looks like just a traditional cop movie, and it seems pretty straightforward. Nick is being investigated by internal affairs. It looks like he may have stolen some money, but Michael Douglas is such an endearing, genuine guy, and it comes through in all of his performances that I don't want to believe that Nick is guilty of this. And he also has the spiel of, why are you guys on my back? Why aren't you on the real criminals' backs, the real guys who are scumbags? So you think that's what the movie's going to be about, and then Nick and his partner Charlie, played by Andy Garcia, go into a restaurant and they witness a murder take place by the Yakuza. And so you think, okay, that's what the movie's going to be about, and the internal affairs investigation is going to be a side thing. They do catch this important Yakuza guy named Sato, who Nick and Charlie mispronounce as Sato because they're New York cops. Nick especially really comes off as a John McClane in this movie. Tough, gruff, high intuition, take no crap, bend the rules and break them if he has to. John McClane type of character without the kind of superhero-ness to him, which is funny because John McClane wasn't intended to be a superhero in Die Hard. He was supposed to be the everyman wearing an undershirt and bare feet, and it just kind of, his luck was so extreme in so many circumstances that it just seemed like that was his mutant power. He had mutant super luck. Nick is like a little more of a, I should say a lot more grounded version of John McClane. He isn't able to leap off of buildings away from explosions. He can't dodge bullets. He's not that fast. He's an older guy, but he still is able to do a couple of cool action things, like he rides a motorcycle very well. He's great in a fist fight. He is savvy, and he's got a real New York cop attitude too. So after Nick and Charlie apprehend Sato, they're charged with delivering him to Japan. Japan wants to extradite him. They want to try him. And so Nick and Charlie get on a plane with Sato. They fly over to Japan. And although I really love this movie, there are two huge idiot plot points in it. So if you don't know what an idiot plot point is, it's a part of the movie where the writer, the director, they want something to happen. And there's no plausible, intelligent, believable way to do it. So what they wanted to do is to have Sato get away. And there's just no way to do it because he's being watched by these two guys who we're supposed to believe are these awesome, savvy, can't pull anything over them New York cops. So how does Sato get away? I guess as far as an idiot plot point is concerned, the one they went with is probably better than him kneeing Nick in the balls and running away. A bunch of suits, Japanese guys in suits show up at the plane. They give Nick some paperwork that's all in Japanese, and Nick is like, what the hell is this? I can't read this. But they look official. They look like cops. They act like cops, and Nick is supposed to be able to read people, and I guess he reads these guys these are legit Japanese cops, and he hands Sato over to these officials, walks down the plane to the other exit, and there's the real Japanese officials going, where's Sato? And that's when Nick and Charlie realize, oh no! So there's your idiot plot point. That's how Sato gets away. So when it comes to idiot plot points, the filmmaker has to decide, I can either not do what I want to happen in the story because there's no way to do it intelligently, and screw it, we'll find another way, and it might not be as interesting. Or they decide, you know what, a lot of audiences are idiots, and so screw it, we'll do it. The minority of intelligent viewers aren't going to like it, but most people won't really give a crap. They'll go along with it. And speaking personally as the co-host of Armchair Directors for the past 7 years, we have gotten so many stupid, ignorant comments on that channel, as well as, remember the IMDb message boards? They obliterated those because of all of the idiots on there. Not just sort of dumb comments, but just idiotic, vile, stupid stuff. So, if you ever wonder to yourself, why would they do something so stupid in this otherwise incredibly intelligent movie? I think that's why. So now that Sato's gotten away, Nick and Charlie refuse to go back to the States. They say their job was to deliver Sato in the hands of the Japanese officials, and they're not going home until they do. The Japanese officials decide to let them stay and do what they can to help with the case, but Nick and Charlie aren't allowed to carry their guns with them. which I think is a great decision because it really handicaps these New York super cops. They're also assigned a Japanese official named Masahiro, Mas Babe, played by Ken Tatakura. And he, at first, seemed like he was just going to be in the background, basically playing translator for the two stars of the movie. But what ends up happening, and this is one of the huge spoilers in the film, is that, I had this feeling while I was watching the film that Andy Garcia was far too smiley and happy. And Nick, Michael Douglas's character, is a real dark, rundown, grumpy kind of guy. But whenever Charlie is around, he just brightens right up. Charlie, Charlie! He really loved Charlie like a brother or a son. And so whenever I see stuff like that in movies, you just know that Charlie's going to buy it. The happy guy isn't going to last. And I kept expecting it to happen, but it didn't happen. And he didn't get killed at the spot where a movie will usually kill a character like that and turn a movie into a revenge movie. So I like that about this movie, that Charlie does eventually get killed, but he lasts so much longer than I thought he would. The way he gets killed is idiot plot point number 2. There's a part in the movie where Nick is upset about how things are being handled, and he wants to walk home to the hotel. And their escort, Mas Babe. They use the word babe a lot in this movie. Nick and Charlie call everybody babe. Hey, babe. So they say, we're going to walk home to the hotel, and Mas is trying to tell them, you don't know where it is. You don't know how far it is. It's far. We got to walk. I got to walk off some steam, which is really stupid because as these guys are walking unarmed back to their hotel, which they're not even sure where it is, they run across some Yakuza guys on motorcycles. And one of them steals Charlie's jacket because he's being an idiot. He's doing this ole ole thing with his jacket that he would do with Nick earlier in the movie. And the Yakuza guy steals the jacket. So Charlie, like a moron, runs after him and chases, while Nick is running behind going, stop, stop, don't! So that's really stupid. And what's stupid on top of stupid is that somehow the path that Nick follows Charlie deviates and he ends up in a garage on the other side of a cage. So he can't actually get to Charlie. I don't understand how that can happen. Just follow where the guy was going. How can you take a path so different that you end up on the other side of a big, long cage that you can't get to this guy? So the Yakuza, they kill Charlie, they slash him up, they decapitate him, while Nick is forced to watch. The death of Charlie is obviously very difficult for Nick, and I love that they give Nick time to mourn. There's so many movies that are just so fake, so empty, that someone who's supposed to be important to someone else gets killed, and then, I want revenge, and that's it. We're just told that the person wants revenge, and we're not shown why they want revenge. In this movie, they give Michael Douglas the time to really have Charlie's death affect him, as well as Moss, too. In the short time that they spent together, Charlie and Moss really bonded, and Charlie is the type of character that to know him is to love him. And that goes for the characters in the movie, I think, as well as the audience. But Charlie's death, instead of just being used as a plot point, now Nick wants revenge. Now it's personal. It also leads to one of the coolest scenes in the movie where, again, we learn a little bit about Japanese culture. It's such a culturally rich film, and it depicts the Japanese culture in such a beautiful way. Mas tells Nick, we have a tradition in Japan that when one of our own dies, we get something of his. And so Nick really doesn't want to deal with this right now, but it's important to Moss. And so Nick takes Charlie's badge and he gives it to Moss. And that means a lot to Moss. It's a very, precious symbol of Charlie and what he lived for. And then Nick asks Moss, I can have anything, right? And Moss goes, rules are rules. He's been established as a straight arrow who follows the rules. Well, if rules are rules, and Nick picks up Charlie's gun. And that's the loophole, that now he's got a gun. Now we're on a level playing field. sort of. He still only has a limited number of bullets, whatever bullets Charlie had, but I thought that was such a cool scene. It could have been cheesy, like, I'm out for revenge. And it's just a little revolver, right? It's not like a assault rifle or a shotgun, but beautifully shot as only Ridley Scott can do. And then it seems like, okay, this is not a cop drama, a buddy cop movie. This is a revenge piece now. But I really like how it was handled, because this guy who seemed like he was going to be a background character, Moss, and he's kind of sheepish. There's nothing really charismatic about that character at first. He really steps in, and this turns out to be a culture clash movie. And it's about the relationship between Nick and Moss. And that's what I really enjoyed about this movie, that it wasn't just a New York cop, dirty tactics. Sometimes you got to bend the rules movie. Moss brings the honor to the movie, which I love. I love movies and shows that harken back to the old school set of values and honor and integrity. And in this movie, the Japanese officials really adhere to that code of honor. Moss is like a modern day samurai. Don't steal, don't break the rules, follow the rules. And then you got Nick, who is like a bull in a china shop in Japan. He just does what he wants. He does what he has to in order to solve the case. And he's telling Moss and the Japanese officials, this is what you need to do to get these scumbags. This is why you haven't gotten these scumbags. There is a conflict between Nick and Moss earlier in the movie, because Nick doesn't follow the rules, and Moss is such a straight arrow that he reports these transgressions to his officials, which gets Nick in trouble. So there's that to work out too. It's not just, I don't really like you. It's that Nick really despises Moss. His attitude is, Moss, you should have come to me. You should have come to me and talked to me instead of, see, what the situation is that Nick steals some of the money during one of the busts. And Moss just assumes, because he's heard what is happening with Nick and internal affairs back in New York, he just assumes, well, Nick is a thief. He's stealing money from a crime scene. What Nick actually did was that he took the money so that he could go burn it and decide if it was counterfeit or not. And when counterfeit money gets burned, it leaves certain impressions or lack of impressions, which give it away. And that's one of the only ways to determine if it's genuinely counterfeit, by burning it. So Nick kind of shoves that in his face. He burns it, and he says, see, that's what I was doing. I wasn't stealing the money. I'm not a criminal. So there's that part of the movie where the relationship is being repaired, and mutual respect is being formed between the two cops. And then it goes into the final part, which is finally to apprehend Sato. Moss starts to see things Nick's way. And he realizes that to fight these extreme types of criminals, that extreme measures have to be taken. And so Moss adopts more of a New York cop mentality in Japan, trying to apprehend this guy. There is a fantastic scene near the end of the movie in a steel mill that looks so similar to the steel mill scene at the end of Terminator 2. I really wonder if the T2 scene was filmed in the same steel mill as in this film. It's kind of funny. This is a Ridley Scott movie. For most of it, it doesn't seem like it. It just seems like a regular cop drama. But in that scene in particular, there were many shades of, in terms of the cinematography, the editing, the feel, and the atmosphere of it. That steel mill scene felt a lot like Alien, Aliens, and T2. So what I think happened here is that it kind of felt like Alien because Ridley did Alien. But then he watched Aliens and went, ooh, that's taking it to the next level. Which James Cameron was highly influenced by Ridley Scott when James was doing Aliens. And then Ridley did his thing in Black Rain, and I bet you that James Cameron watched Black Rain and went, wow. So it's T2 is James Cameron imitating Ridley Scott, imitating James Cameron, imitating Ridley Scott. The unpredictability of the film continues with that steel mill scene, because by all accounts, that seemed like it was the end of the movie. This is the steel mill showdown. This is where they get Sato, and this is where they wrap up the movie. But it's not. The whole thing gets botched, and Sato gets away. And Nick is taken into custody and put on a plane, and they're going to send him back to the States. And with all the crappy things that were happening to Nick throughout this movie, I genuinely thought in that moment, this is a bad ending movie. This guy's going to get sent back home to the States. He's going to get found guilty by internal affairs because he does reveal that he actually did take the money. He's not proud of it, but, bills and his kids and all the other crap he had to deal with, he did actually steal the money. He's not a straight arrow. So I thought, wow, this is going to be a depressing movie. But Nick finds a way off the plane. He makes his way back to Moss, and Moss has been suspended because of helping Nick, and he doesn't want anything to do with this stuff anymore. He's been pulled in too far, and Nick convinces him to help him get Sato. So in order to get close to Sato, Nick actually makes a deal with a rival Yakuza mob boss who give him a shotgun and a couple of shells, and they say, all right, take care of him. So you got this tough New York cop who's got a shotgun now, but again, limited bullets, all these little techniques that they're not allowing Douglas's character to be a super cop who's capable of superhuman feats like John McClane or like a Chow Yun-fat in any of his Hong Kong cop movies. And plus, Nick does look like crap. He's disheveled and he's tired, and I'm constantly thinking, this guy's going to get killed. Like, Moss is going to get killed too. Everyone's going to get killed. This is not going to be a happy ending. At best, this will be a bittersweet ending. And I was really surprised that this is actually a happy ending movie. Not only does Nick get his man, he also redeems himself in regards to the whole internal affairs investigation, him stealing money. It isn't just a revenge flick. It's not just a cop drama. It's not a huge character arc, seemingly, but when you think about it, it really is. Nick does go from a crooked cop to an honest cop in what happens in the final scene where he gets the plates, which were the MacGuffin for the whole film, the plates to create counterfeit money. He has them. Whoever has those plates is set for life. You can just give them to whoever knows what they're doing, and you can make money for the rest of your life, and you're covered. And he gives the plates to Moss, symbolically saying, I'm done stealing money. What Moss said to him did really hit home. Moss said, when you steal, you disgrace yourself, you disgrace Charlie, you disgrace me, and you disgrace all police officers. That it's a brotherhood of police officers, and the actions of one affect everybody. So some really deep, thought-provoking stuff in this seemingly simple cop drama action movie. Many of the scenes filmed in Japan look a lot like Blade Runner as well, also directed by Ridley Scott. So if you're a fan of Ridley Scott films, especially Blade Runner, because it has that gritty, dark tone and even the aesthetics with the neon and the lights and the signs at night, the pacing of Ridley Scott movies, and also if you're a Michael Douglas fan, this is definitely one you got to check out. Michael Douglas reminds me a lot of a wrestler named Terry Funk. One of my favorite Terry Funk quotes about wrestling is that he said, I can't make you believe wrestling is real, but I can make you believe I'm real. And that's what Michael Douglas has almost always done for me. He's the type of actor that even if I don't believe the movie, even if I'm not in the movie, I don't feel it, I don't care about it, I think it's fake or lame, Michael Douglas makes me believe he's real, that he does the best he can with what he has to work with. Black Rain is a real feeling movie that really drew me in. I thought it was extremely immersive. You take a great talented director like Ridley Scott, and then you take a real actor like Michael Douglas, who wasn't trying to be something that he's not. He wasn't walking around this movie in a sleeveless shirt and brandishing assault rifles. He wasn't kicking down doors and beating up five guys at the same time. That's not Michael Douglas. He was doing what Michael Douglas does in all of his movies, and everything he does in this movie I found believable. I didn't find it to be a stretch. I didn't think, oh, come on, that's not something that this guy would be capable of. It was really handled in a realistic way, and I think Michael Douglas, because he's one of these guys who sits and thinks a lot about his character, he really gets into his character. But also at the same time, he doesn't become so different a person than who he actually is in real life. Douglas's best characters are just basically Michael Douglas with the volume turned up, sometimes to 6 or 7 or 8 or 10. But that's what I really enjoyed about this performance, along with all of Michael Douglas's other performances, that I really believe that he was real in this movie. If you've never seen Black Rain and you're a Michael Douglas fan or a Ridley Scott fan, do yourself a favor, track it down and check it out. Question or comment about Black Rain, scroll down and go to town. And to join the tribe, hit subscribe, babe.